So, as I said, we're going to start off with Trump. There are 8 possible ways I think that Trump can hit the economy. So we're going to focus a lot on, not on social issues, which we all pretty much agree on here. We're not going to focus on those things. We're going to talk about how he can potentially affect the economy. And there's 8 ways, and I'm just going to list them real quick. Regulation, immigration, trade, as in trade war, et cetera. ACA specifically, which I guess we could put that underneath regulation. Infrastructure, defense, personal taxes, and corporate taxes. Okay, so we're going to touch on those 8 things, and then we can set it aside until we hit every other slide in the presentation, I'm sure. So first, regulation. So day one, they're going to come in the office, and they're going to retract a lot of the executive orders that Obama put in place. It's a given, which means we're going to be where we were 8 years ago. It's not the end of the world. Things are going to change, no doubt about that. Second thing they're going to start talking about is environment and energy. A lot of those things are going to go away. Anything he can just strike a pen and make go away will go away. That won't affect the economy today, except it'll boost energy spending. It'll boost energy companies. And we're already seeing that. We'll see a chart and we'll see why we're already anticipating that. He may retrace some of the DoddFrank rules, which was the rebuilding of the financial regulatory infrastructure post-2008. So we might see some of that go away, okay? Which probably won't affect much in terms of finance companies' investments, in terms of future employment and plant and equipment, those kinds of things. But it might change how you interact with us, not with us, but with brokers, because the DOL rule is part of that, and that's a big deal that's out there right now. And the Department of Labor rule that specifically the Department of Labor came out with a rule that said anybody that's facing the customer has to act as a fiduciary for specifics of the ERISA and retirement programs, IRAs, et cetera. We've already seen it, that was a little late because, it's an important rule. It ought to be in effect. But when you look at the growth of the financial services companies, clients are choosing fiduciaries over Wall Street firms. So John came out of, David never was there. Many of us came out of Wall Street firms. I was at UBS, I was at Morgan Stanley, I was at Prudential. I've been at lots of different firms before I started my own company. And I've grown faster here than I ever grew there, and that was 20 years ago. John was at Morgan Stanley. Most of the assets, when you watch asset flow, has gone to small advisory firms that are fiduciaries already. The DOL rule is not going to affect us that much because we already operate that way. Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, B of A, they're going to have a tough go. They're going to lobby they're right now lobbying like crazy to get it repealed. And so that might happen because that's kind of some of the things that he's thinking about. Immigration. Now, I am actually not concerned about mass deportation or mass enforcements. That's not the problem he's going to have for us for economics. The problem he's going to have for us in economics is he's going to, 3/10, our labor force is growing at 0.3%. That is not enough. That is how we grow GDP, is to grow our labor force. But our net labor force growth, meaning after all the people that are retiring, is only 0.3%. We need immigration. We need skilled immigration. We will not grow without it. We have to have it. And so that he may affect the economy by not allowing or by talking negatively or whatever about immigration. So that may be a problem. But when you read a lot of the headlines that are, deportations and I don't believe any of that. Republicans don't want that. It's just not a dog that will hunt. It won't work. None of us wants to see people marching down and grabbing 17-year-old kids that don't happen to be citizens and throwing them to deportation chambers. No one wants to see that, not even him. Third thing is trade. Now, he can affect individual companies through Twitter, and he's doing this already. But he can't affect mass. He can't affect the mass economy doing that. It won't work. He's going to bloviate and negotiate and throw out these ideas and be an obnoxious buffoon. He's going to do this. We know this. We knew this 6 months ago. We didn't know he was going to be president, but but we knew that if he was, this is how he would be. The question is, what comes out of that? He knows, so what is it? Gandhi said, an eye for an eye, and pretty much we're all blind, right? A tariff for a tariff, and pretty soon we're all poor. This is known economic theory. Someone's going to tell him, hey, this is really a bad idea. He's talking about, and Republicans are talking about, this cross-border tax. That's kind of a sneaky tariff. It's going to be reacted the same way by the Chinese, by Mexico, it'll be, so that won't fly either when we talk about personal tax or corporate tax reform. Those things, he may do little things around the edges, but if he does too much, he will lose the next cycle because prices will go up for all of us on everything. It's a bad idea. He could do a lot of bad things, right? He can. He will learn as he goes. Right now, it's just bloviation right now. It's just noise. Okay, ACA. This is a hard one. He came out, this last week? Dave and I were talking about this today. And both he and Ryan are now talking, not single payer, but they're talking everyone needs coverage. They're both saying everyone needs coverage. They're saying we can't just repeal this and not replace it with something. But what were they saying 2 weeks ago? Repeal, we'll replace it later. Well, that is the system working. Right? That is how it's supposed to work. One guy's supposed to have a crazy, funky idea, and he's going to just say it, and then we're going to go, what? That's nuts. Well, you can't do that. And then they're going to, oh, maybe we can't do that. And he heard, I think it was, what was the report? Oh, the Congressional Budget Office, right? Said 18 million people will lose their insurance if you repeal this. And everyone else their insurance is going to double. And so then he was like, well, we can't do that. We have to think about another solution. So that's negotiation. What he's doing, if you really think about this, is negotiating like a crazy man. He's setting a target of a negotiation really, really high, hoping that other people come in really, really low or come in higher so he can sort of meet in the middle somewhere. Is he a jerk? Yeah. But is he going to do it that way anyways? Yeah. We don't have to get too worked up about it. It's not going to, I do want to say this though, there is something about ACA that's broken, and this is what it is. Everyone knows this, but I'm going to say it anyways. If we were all required to get fire insurance, no, sorry, we weren't required to get fire insurance, but we all had access to fire insurance, and when we went for it, it was cheap, and we could do it when our house was burning. No one would get insurance until their house was burning, right? So that's kind of how we built the ACA. Is that pre-existing condition, which I understand why it's there, very important, but insurance companies can't manage that risk, right? And the penalty for not getting insurance isn't high enough. So it doesn't mean we can't do it. Something else has to change. And it may be that a single payer is the way to go. Anyway, and I think Trump said that. Did Trump say single payer? What did he say?
What Trump said was he wanted a healthcare system for everyone.
What that means.
It's going to be better and
cheaper. Right. Okay. He's blowing it. Right. He's just stating stuff. Okay. Infrastructure. Okay. Infrastructure spending. When you look at the federal deficit, there's not enough money in the till to do a whole bunch. So all the stuff he's talking about happening, it'd be great if we got a little bit of it. There's not enough money in the till. And he's talking about tax cuts, and he's talking about you can't do it all. It's just the Republicans won't do it, Democrats won't do it, everyone will disagree with it. It's just that won't happen. So all that, it'd be great if we got some, not going to be as much as he talks about. He is talking about public-private partnership for construction programs, for roads, for these kinds of things. So we might see some of that. That'd be a good thing. Defense spending, there's going to be more money on defense because he has everyone he needs to put more money into defense. Personal tax cuts. I think we're going to see smaller tax cuts later. And the reason is it's not possible. The deficit's been brought down, not every year, but most of the time Obama was president. It's just started to tick back up. It's not possible to increase or reduce the revenues to the federal government while a deficit is ballooning. He won't be able to do it. There'll be some, but if your tax rate's 45, it's not going to 35. It's not happening. 1%, 2%, we'll see something. More likely, we'll see corporate tax changes, and that's so smaller rate reductions probably later. Corporate tax cuts. So again, go back to this cross-border thing. The way the cross-border thing they're talking about works is right now we get a tax break, or companies get a tax break for imports. They deduct import costs. So the change would be to deduct exports, basically. So you're going to hurt a whole bunch of companies, help a whole bunch of other companies. The net effect is going to be minimal, but you're going to drive up everyone's prices because it's going to be a tariff on the companies that are doing the export, on the companies that are doing importing. So anything that's imported is going to be more expensive. So what he's doing is he's trying to use tax code to improve our trade space in the nation. I was talking with somebody earlier, I think I was talking with Mike earlier about this. When Obama became president, he wasn't the stimulus president. He was the stability president. The world was falling apart when he became president. He brought stability. He's never been able to create growth, whatever that reason is. We don't have as much innovation, we don't have whatever. It could be Republicans in Congress. It hasn't happened. So the hope is that with a little bit of corporate tax cuts, you'll get a repatriation, which gives us a one-time. So let's say he goes, okay, 10% for 1 year, and then it'll go up to 20%. Something like that. Maybe it's 15% and 25%. But 10% for 1 year, and we bring back a whole bunch of funds externally. We get 1 year of a boost because we get a lot of new money that comes across and it's taxed. And so that with that money that's taxed, we can do some infrastructure spending. We can do some things with that. Maybe that's how he pays for a shorter term tax cut. But it goes away. And then we have a more competitive tax structure. One of the challenges with our corporate tax structure isn't that it's high, it's that the number that we see as the corporate taxes isn't the number anyone pays. There's so many little ways to cut it and pay less, and that we're going to bring that closer together so that it's a real tax number. So those are the 8 things. Very few things can actually have a massive negative economic impact. And if there's nothing else we take out of this, I can't really comment, I'm not a sociologist, I can't really comment on the social impacts, which I think are going to be very real. But in terms of economic impacts, I'm not afraid. I'm not worried about what he's going to do to the economy. I think he's a narcissistic fool. I don't think he's going to destroy us. Every year for the last, I don't know how many years, our debt ceiling has been raised. And eliminating the debt ceiling is just really eliminating a single check. So was he saying eliminate the debt ceiling? Raise it. It's going to get raised. It gets raised every year. It gets raised anytime they get close to it. It gets raised, and there's a big. The Republicans shut down Congress over raising the debt ceiling. When was that? 4 years ago? 6 years ago? It happens all the time. So that discussion happens always. And while that discussion has always happened, we raise the debt ceiling, we hit the new ceiling. So we raise the debt ceiling, we hit the new ceiling, we raise the debt ceiling, we hit the new ceiling. There's economists that will argue that it's horrible for us, it's very bad, it's really terrible for the economy, and there's economists that say we never have to pay it back, it's not a big deal. As long as our economy is growing and we can pay the interest on the debt, it's just like, well, it's not a household. But if you think about it like a household, you're okay if you can pay your interest, right? We can always, in a rough patch, create more revenue. We are an incredibly wealthy country. We have assets we can sell, we have people we can tax. If we really need to do it, we can do it. Raising the debt ceiling, it's just going to happen. I didn't see the interview. It shocks me that it's a thing, that was an interview question with him, because
some of the figures being floated were
huge, I'm sure.
$7 trillion range. So.
Raising it by $7 trillion, which would make it, what is it now, 19, 20 trillion? I mean, the debt? Mm-hmm. What is the debt right now? Yeah. So if we raise it $7 trillion, it's gone up 8, 9 trillion under Obama. So every time it happens, we raise it, we just borrow more. And if our GDP is 18 trillion, 20, if it keeps growing and growing and growing, we can afford it. I don't think it's smart. I don't like it. Eventually, I think there's something to improve.
Does it affect our investments at all by putting more money into the economy? Or does it affect the bond market by?
So if we borrow money and do some infrastructure spending, then that'll boost parts of the economy. If we borrow money and reduce taxes, that'll affect different parts of the economy. So these are all levers we have, but we end up with more debt and something we have to pay for forever and ever and ever. So the way Republicans want to do stimulus is tax cuts. The way Democrats want to do it is with spending programs. And when Republicans are in office and they want to raise the debt ceiling for tax cuts, Democrats go crazy. And when Democrats are in office and they want to raise the debt ceiling for tax cuts, I probably screwed that up, but it's all kind of it's just part of the conversation that's always continuing. It's not, who is it, Krugman? Krugman says Paul Krugman says he's one of the economists that says that something doesn't matter. We need to stop talking about this. The only time in history that the U.S. bond or the U.S. Treasuries were downgraded, rates went down. It cost us less to borrow after that. It's just, the math says if it's a lower rated bond, you should pay a higher rate of interest. But that's actually not what happens. People still flee to the U.S. Dollar, the U.S. Treasury, as the safest thing, even though everyone says it's AA now, AA plus, depending on who the rating agency is.